What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Hardworking Happy Hour. I'm Sean.
And I'm Catherine, and as always, we'll be breaking down all things trades, entrepreneurship, and turning your creativity into a passion career. Sean.
Catherine, what's happening?
Not much. How you doing? How are you feeling today, Sean? How are you doing?
How am I feeling?
Yeah.
I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm anxious, depressed. I have so many emotions going on that I don't know how to decipher any of them. So hopefully we might be addressing that on today's episode.
I think we'll get into it.
What are we talking about? Scared. What are we talking about, Catherine? What's on the episode today?
Today we have a very special episode because we have a guest. Her name is Suzi. I almost called her Dr. Suzi.
She'll
like
take.
that, right?
She's not a doctor,
Okay,
but she'll go with that. Yeah.
But anyway, Suzi is someone who's close to Sean and by proxy also me now, and she is a therapist and she has a lot to say about mental health. And we really wanted to talk about this week because it is, I keep messing up the actual title of it, but I think it's National Suicide Prevention Week. So
/ maybe month.
I'm not sure. I thought it was maybe it's a week within a month. I'm not sure, but either way, it's a great time to talk about mental health in the trades and how it affects all of our brothers and sisters in the trades. So, Sean, do you want to tell us a little bit about Suzi?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually feeling great today. That was just hyperbole to build up suspense about the episode. But I have had those feelings in the past, and there's nothing wrong with them. Accepting them is the first thing you need to do to move on and beyond them. So anyway, Suzi is my cousin Mark's wife. She is a licensed clinical social worker. She owns her own practice, which my beautiful wife works at. So she is she's great. She's a therapist.
She's also a professor. So she's also spreading the good word to the youth and the future of social work. So she is. She's one of a kind. She's wonderful. I've gotten to know her pretty well.
Yes.
Through Sarah too. So
what's the female version of a Renaissance man?
I'm gonna go out a limb here and say Renaissance woman.
Well, that's what she must be then. Yeah, she does a little bit of everything. And first off, shout out to my beautiful wife Sarah for recommending we get her on. And as soon as I said we're gonna have Suzi on, she said, "Why didn't you ask me? I'm a social worker." I was like, "You told me to ask Suzi like a million times." So maybe we'll have Sarah on in the future. But thanks for the recommendation, Han.
I feel like if we have Sarah on, which could also be fun, but it might just turn into like a YouTube thing, you know?
It might turn into a thing where
if we're talking about work-life balance, and then Sean's like, "I've got this mastered," and Sarah's like, "No, you don't." You know?
That might be fun. It would be like more of an expose, if anything. Yeah. But yeah. But I feel like I should put that in there because this will also be the only episode she ever listens to because one of her best friends, Suzi, is on. And
despite the fact that one of her best friends is already on this podcast every week.
Yeah, well, sorry. You just don't make the cut, I guess. Maybe it's the subject matter rather than the personnel. But but Suzi is, like I said, my cousin Mark's wife, and she is now one of my wife's best friends and boss. And really, they've known each other for, I don't know, maybe like 10 years or so, and hit it off right away. And it's one of those things where my uncle James was like, Sarah, you gotta meet Suzi. You guys would really hit it off. And Sarah's like, yeah, whatever, you know. People always say that, but then they did, and they became like best friends. So I think this is going to be really good, very timely episode. And we spoiler alert here, we previously recorded the interview with her, so I know that you're going to get a ton of really great stuff out of this. She really touched on a lot of, I think, crucial things about mental health and made it accessible for people that might not be as in touch with, going to therapy or having coping skills and all that kind of stuff. So she really ties it in, and she's also a business owner, so understands some of that struggle that you deal with as a business owner. So it was really good insight, and I think everyone's gonna enjoy it and hopefully pull some really impactful, actionable things out of this.
For sure. All right, now let's head to the segment. Hey, Suzi, thank you so much for being here today with us.
Hi, Suze.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
we're so grateful for you to be here today because this is a very timely episode. It is National Suicide Prevention Week. Is that correct? The correct title for it?
Yes. I believe it's the whole month, but yes, it's...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Even more timely then.
I think.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is so important for people, especially in the trades, because by profession, construction is number one in suicides, unfortunately. And I have a statistic. For every 100,000 male construction workers, 56 died by suicide in 2022, which is compared to 32 in the regular general population of men. So it's a pretty staggering statistic.
Yikes.
And I don't want to, dive too far into that. Obviously, it's a sensitive topic, but definitely something to be aware of. And what we want to talk about is definitely improving our mental health. So we're so grateful for Suzi. She's definitely an expert in this, and we're so glad for you to be here. You're our resident expert.
Yes.
You can just pretend to be an expert. We pretend to be experts the whole time too. So
Okay, expert. Yay.
it'll be fine. Yeah. I'm super glad to have you on because we've talked about mental health before.
Mhm.
I've kind of shared some of stuff that I deal with. Catherine's talked about some stuff, and I think I guess we'll start off. I think in general, it seems like obviously, you think of the prototypical construction worker, and it's like a manly man, and I don't have any feelings, and I'm tough, and I don't need to talk to anybody about emotions. But it does feel like it's changing a little bit. Probably just in the population in general, it seems like it's more accepted, maybe with a younger generation. What do you see from your side on like the acceptance of going to therapy and talking to a therapist and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with, the attitudes around reaching out for help or feeling like, kind of typical like masculinity. You didn't see, but I did air quotes outside of the frame. It kind of gets in the way of letting people feel vulnerable, which also gets in the way of connection, right? And I think that some of the bigger contributors to things like suicide are loneliness and feelings of like not being productive, not having a purpose, like that kind of thing. So I think that the more that, you mentioned construction workers, also like hyper masculine fields, like, you look at like the NFL or like professional sports or things like that, where you've had some high profile, obviously moments of like great tragedy, but also moments of, high profile athletes who are sharing their stories with, anxiety and depression, like AJ Brown, on the Eagles, people like that. So I think the more that conversation shifts, the more that people feel comfortable asking for help and reaching out and saying, I don't necessarily have this all together. I don't have all the answers. I don't know. I think a big thing in therapy is figuring out, do you need support right now or do you really need solutions? And I think that people often don't have one or the other. Like maybe you have a support system, but you don't have ideas of actually how to resource or find coping skills that work for you. But I think that like you said, like in general, the conversation's starting to shift because I mean, those statistics are pretty wild, right? Like that's a huge amount of people to actually kill themselves or, get to a point where they feel like there's no other option. So I think it's just necessary. It has to happen. And I think the more that we're all able to have a conversation about it, have an open dialogue. I do want to say, like, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about things like mental health or suicide are that if you bring it up, it's going to like put it in somebody's head that here's an option, here's something I didn't think about. And that's a huge myth. The more we talk about things and the more that we destigmatize mental health or suicide or whatever it is that we're talking about, the better. It's never going to put an idea in somebody's head that wasn't already creeping around, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And we
Definitely.
kind of always talk about the fact that everyone should go to therapy because it's good. You know, it's like it's almost like mental hygiene. It's like brushing your teeth or taking a shower. Having somebody to talk to about whatever is really a nice outlet to have. And I think I think the hardest thing for most people is like that initial first step of, you know, going to see a therapist for the first time. And most of the time, at least in my experience, it's you don't really know that you need therapy until something like pops up. I think a lot of people, myself included, have gotten really good at just like stuffing things down and ignoring it and not paying attention to emotions and things that are happening or stress. And then it'll find a way out. And for me, it was panic attacks. And I started like, I just thought I was dying. I thought it didn't even feel like anxiety. It was just like, I'm dying and I don't know why. I still wasn't like connecting the dots that it was just, you know, not dealing with stuff that was happening, whether it's stress or emotions. And I think sometimes it has to get to that point for people to realize, okay, there is something happening here and I need some help, whether it's therapy or seeing a doctor or whatever it is. But I think the more that we can get to a point where people can realize these signs before they have to like bubble over and have panic attacks or have violent outbursts or something like that, the more helpful it's going to be to people. So my question is, how do you like what advice do you have for somebody that, you know, might be thinking about, I think I should probably try out therapy. I should look into this. Like what's the first step that somebody should take to like initiate finding a therapist?
That's such a good question. So I always say, like, I think like one of the things that I do that's really satisfying that's outside of my actual work is helping people with that step. I can't tell you how many times I've had just like a friend, an acquaintance, you know, someone I used to work with or go to school with or whoever just kind of be like, I have this issue or I have this problem. What do I do? I literally don't know where to go or who to ask for help. So it's almost like baby case management outside of work where it's like, okay, I mean, you can literally go online, you know, look up therapists in your area that accept your insurance. You can put in, if you go on Psychology Today, they should be sponsoring you guys right now for this free little plug.
They
But,
should.
you know, you can put in all the very specific things that you're looking for: help with anxiety, help with panic attacks, help with, you know, thoughts of suicide, what, you know, whatever the thing is. And also, you know, your insurance, your location. Do you prefer telehealth? Do you prefer meeting in person? And then I think that's like the very first step, right? And from there, hopefully you can connect with somebody that if you need more specialized help or, you know, just like maybe more of a program that you need to complete or something that is a little bit more in depth, hopefully they can connect you with that. But I think just starting with like a very basic, let me just talk to somebody and see what it feels like to actually be open, honest, vulnerable, have somebody there that's not going to judge me, that's just going to listen. And, you know, I think the other thing, and this goes for therapy, but it also goes for if you're ever dealing with somebody in your life that you're like, I don't know how to help them or I don't know what's going on with them, just being a really active listener and not waiting for your turn to jump in and talk, you know, or respond or provide a solution or something like that goes a long way. And I think that's what therapists really do for people is just, you know, I'm just going to like hold space for you. I'm going to receive this for you. And then hopefully if you want solutions, we can kind of come up with a treatment plan. We can come up with ways to handle these very specific symptoms that you're having, or I can just listen. If you just need somebody to listen and support and tell you you're not alone in this, you know, this is a very common thing, psychoeducation around things like having suicidal ideation or panic attacks or things like that. I think that idea of not being alone in those issues is so powerful for people.
Yeah, definitely. And I just on a personal note, I love therapy. Obviously, we're huge champions of it. But I was a person who I just went through my insurance and they kind of suggested somebody at first, and I saw them, and it just wasn't the right fit. So I just wanted to make the point of like, if you find somebody and it's not the right fit, that doesn't mean that therapy isn't the right fit for you. You just might need to find a new person to talk to. So
totally.
like
that's such a good point.
I always want to say that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you have to, I think like the most important thing is connection. You have to be able to connect with somebody, and that just isn't a possibility for every single person in every single situation. And some therapists are really, really good in one area and not in another area. And that's just, I mean, that's people. Like, we're all humans. So
Right.
that's how it's going to be. But I also want to say, I think I was just having this conversation with a student of mine who was having, and this is someone who's in, a master's of social work program, like you would think maybe has some access to mental health resources, but they were having a really hard time getting somebody to call them back, like just like, oh, I'm reaching out. I can't get somebody to return my call or my email. And I was able to say, just keep doing it. It's kind of like, you gotta put a lot of lines out there to like catch a fish or whatever whatever the metaphor is that I'm going for here. But, and then he did end up finding somebody, and I was really, really happy that he stuck with it, because it can be disheartening just because there is a little bit of like a mental health crisis and shortage of available therapists right now, especially for like certain specialized things. So it can feel frustrating when you're someone that's like, I'm doing the right thing, I'm reaching out for help, and nobody's getting back to me. I would say just keep trying, because eventually you will get somebody, and hopefully it'll really be helpful, like really quickly,
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I kind of want to shift the conversation from being in therapy to kind of things that people can do for themselves.
I still want to talk about therapy.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I want to talk. I thought this was like a session. I wanted to talk about my problems.
Sorry, we're holding space for you.
Thank you for holding that space. I do appreciate it. The one thing I just wanted to kind of touch on was, I think some people don't know what are the signs that I need to see a therapist, or I should see a therapist, and like why I people might not be able to identify what is causing the feelings that they're having, whether it's anxiety or depression or anything like that. But something that I found, obviously I had a really strong trigger for it. It was panic attacks, and that led me into it. And as I've continued seeing a therapist over the years, one thing that I really enjoy about it is some weeks I feel completely fine, and I'm like, I have nothing to even talk about. Everything's so great. And I think the intention of setting aside the time to just be open and talk about whatever's on your mind, a lot of times I will leave that session talking about something that I didn't even really know was there, but because I'm forcing myself to sit there and talk for an hour or 50 minutes, it really brings things up. So it's helped me become a lot more self-aware of what's happening inside of me. And even when I'm not self-aware of the emotions that are going through me, just the act of sitting there and talking about my emotions to somebody, or my stresses, it kind of triggers it, and it forces it out, and it brings to light something that I wasn't even really aware of. So I think that's a really awesome side effect of therapy, is that self-awareness, that you start to recognize the things a little bit earlier before they manifest in other areas of your life. So yeah, I think it's like ongoing maintenance for your mind and your soul. So
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
cool.
It is cool.
It's cool to go to therapy.
It's cool, guys.
Yeah.
I think what you're touching on is that it's a mindful experience where you're really allowing yourself to be present in an area where we generally do not allow ourselves to be present, right? Like, we're not kind of trained to, and again, I think this is an area that maybe it's changing a little bit, but we're generally not, encouraging our kids to kind of like sit with their emotions. It's more like, get it together. Like, we have to get to the next activity. We got to get to school. Stop crying, whatever. And that, that all sounds really harsh, but I think we've all found ourselves either on the, receiving end of that, or doing that with our own kids. Right. And I think learning and teaching ourselves and modeling that for our families or our kids or whoever it is, that, it's important to go to the gym, right, and take care of your body. It's important to take time for yourself, whatever that looks like, whether it's going to therapy, whether it's having like a meditation practice, or, doing mindfulness in your everyday life. But these are some of the things that people just feel like it's not necessary, right? There's like so many things that we have to do. We have to go to work. We have to, pay our bills. We have to do all these things. We don't have to set aside time to talk about our feelings and thoughts and really process that stuff. So it's not like an absolute necessity until it becomes one, for you. And then I think once you get that into your system and you're really like regulating your nervous system on a regular basis and saying, wow, feels really good to sit with this feeling and understand that it comes from this place of, maybe it's fear instead of anger, or it's, masquerading as something that I don't really want to be presenting. I don't want to present as an angry person. So let me deal with that feeling so I can understand that maybe it's like frustration, resentment, or loneliness, or all these other things that I think therapy really helps to illuminate. So yeah, it's a really good, I mean, obviously I'm a therapist, so I believe in it strongly, but but I'm really proud of it. I think it's really, really an important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now we can get on to whatever. Catherine, do you feel do you want to be vulnerable at all? I feel like I'm really telling my story here.
Love it. I love that for you, Sean.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a big step for me. A couple of years ago, this would not. I wouldn't even know that anything was wrong. I'd just be like, what do you mean? I'm fine. I have this weird twitch, and I don't. That's
totally
normal. I don't. There's nothing happening here. Everything's fine.
But I want to point out that's such an important kind of modeling thing that you're doing for your industry. If you're someone that works in an industry where we're saying there's this huge amount of suicides that happen, or just mental health issues in general that go unchecked, and you're saying, well, I found it to be very helpful to talk to somebody and be vulnerable and let myself, really do these things that make me feel better emotionally and otherwise, maybe other people will, follow and say, oh, I don't feel silly doing that, or I don't feel like I'm giving up my like manliness or whatever, whatever the thing is that makes people hesitant to ask for help, So I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. More people should be in therapy.
Yeah.
So,
and I do think that you bring up a good point about kind of like like you said, you have panic attacks, Sean, and that's how you noticed something was wrong. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to mental health, they're like, I'm not sad, I'm fine. I'm not upset, I'm not crying, I'm not depressed, but I can't sleep at night. Mm-hmm. But that's probably something else. Like, I think that there's like a mind-body connection that a lot of people don't see when it comes to therapy, or the need for mental health hygiene. So I feel like that's a great point, that it might manifest in some kind of ways that you're not really necessarily thinking about. Mm-hmm. That could, like a panic attack is, well, no, because you said you thought you were having like a heart attack or something, right? When you had your panic attack?
I just didn't know I never thought of myself as an anxious person or like had anxiety. So I didn't know what it was. And I was just like, I'm dying. There's something horribly wrong. I can't breathe. Oh my God, I'm going to die.
Which is so scary.
This isn't a panic attack. This is death. This is death staring me right in the eyes. This is not a panic attack. I don't feel nervous or anxious. I just feel like I'm going to die.
Yeah.
But turns out you go to the doctor, they're like, it might be anxiety. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm fine. Do I look anxious? I'm not anxious at all. I'm completely fine.
I think what you're saying is like, and I think, Catherine, you were saying this a little bit, like, I think that mental health is one of those things. Again, it's not a necessity. We don't have to do it. Nobody's forcing us to do it. But it's not tangible necessarily in the same ways that, like, if you are having a heart attack and they're like, okay, you take this heart medicine, you get this surgery, and we fix it. Mental health is not visible, right, in the same way. So I think sometimes people don't believe other people when they're experiencing mental health issues. They don't believe themselves. They say that they can just like pull themselves out of it without any assistance. And that's simply not true, right? And we know that mental health affects our bodies in physical ways all the time, whether it's like having gastrointestinal problems because your anxiety is so bad, or, having panic attacks or migraines or headaches, or simply having your nervous system be activated all the time. That doesn't feel good. Feeling like you just got chased by a tiger, and you don't have anywhere to put that, kind of adrenaline, like those hormones, that feels horrible. That's why people experience like this really bad kind of sensation after being put through like a traumatic experience, or even just something like, it could be something as simple as getting an email from your boss that's like, we need to talk, and now you're like, oh, my heart is racing out of my chest, and I can't catch my breath, and I can't think clearly. So that's why it's so important to have tools to be able to get yourself to a place where you can think clearly, because I always use this example with like little kids, but honestly, I use it with adults too. If you've ever seen like a snow globe, right? Like at Christmas time, you have a snow globe, whatever, and you shake it up, and you can't see what's inside of it. That's what your brain is like when you're panicking or you're anxious or you're depressed or anything is kind of activating your nervous system. So I always use that as a visual to say, we need to take some deep breaths and let everything settle, because then you can see what's inside and then you can have a logical conversation. You can access those emotions. You can, talk to somebody without being like, I hate you, you're a jerk, or whatever, whatever email you want to fire off in that moment. It's always a good idea to take some time, or, write the email, take half an hour and then go back and edit it and really get to the, the crux of the issue without being like, I hate you, you're a jerk, whatever the thing is. So, I like that visual, if that's helpful at all, just to remember that you need to like have a clear mind in order to do a lot of the things that we have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Catherine, now you're free to move on to your next topic. I've aired it all out. I feel so much better. I feel great.
Amazing. Well, I just wanted to kind of shift into what we can kind of do on our own for mental health, because this podcast is about construction and entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurs usually just kind of exist in a state of overwhelm. And do you have any tips, Suzi, for people kind of trying to strive to maintain like a work-life balance or avoid burnout or avoid just general overwhelm? Like, what can people do to kind of, other than seeking therapy, obviously that's number one, but like anything else that they can do on their own to kind of help that feeling of overwhelm or burnout?
Sure. Aside from, coping skills like relaxation stuff and deep breathing, all the maybe the good coping skills that you would learn in therapy, I would say that the number one thing that you can do for yourself is learn boundary setting. And saying, okay, like I can give an example of when I first started my private practice. I would kind of schedule whenever anybody needed something. I would say, okay, I'll schedule myself 12 people in a row. I'll schedule outside of the times that I have allotted for myself. And then I would find myself overwhelmed, stretched really thin, not really being invested in those sessions, because then I'm kind of like, well, now you made me stay 2 hours later than I want to get home to my kids. I want to do all this stuff. And that was really not creating like a good therapeutic environment after a while. So I have learned, and this is a quote that I really love, but I really stick to it. Compassionate people have the best boundaries, because you're showing people, what you're working with, what they're working with. They don't have to guess. They don't have to do something and then you're like exploding because you're already, at your wit's end and you have no other space or, nothing else to give. So really saying, here's my, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's like limiting hours, whether it's limiting when I'm going to check my email, how often I'm going to be available to people. But I think that, that stuff really gets to you. And if you're not able to say, here's the limits of where I feel comfortable and I'm going to stick to it, and then everybody else, they will, eventually they'll understand at a certain point. People try to push boundaries, but the boundary's really for you. It's not about the other person, right? So to me, that's been a really powerful source of peace and rest and being able to balance, work and life. Because if you're just constantly keyed in and plugged in, you're never going to have space for anything else. And that includes like empathy and compassion for your coworkers or your employees. I think that includes the people in your life that are like, well, I'm just asking you to like help with dinner or whatever. And you're like, I have nothing else to give. So I think I would say boundaries. Boundaries are such an important part of my life. And I think it's something I talk a lot about with people in therapy, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that really resonates with business owners because, and it's something that we've talked about a little bit where, if somebody texts you or calls you or emails you at a certain time, whatever that is, and you get back to them right away and it's outside of normal business hours or whatever hours you've kind of set aside to take care of things like that, that's their new expectation. So if a new client texts you at 8 p.m. On 3 separate occasions and you get right back to them all the time, that is telling them, this is my expectation. When I text, whenever it is, it could be Saturday morning at 6 a.m. I'm going to text. I expect a text back right away. So it's hard to go backwards and like now say, hey, I'm not going to get back to you till Monday or whatever, because you've already set that expectation for them. So it's really important to identify and set aside some concrete boundaries of when you're going to do certain things. When is the timeline for me to get back to an email? When will I answer a text or a call? I think these things are important for you to think about beforehand before you initiate any type of relationship with a client or really anybody, because that's going to be their new expectation. Whatever you allow, they're gonna expect that. So I think that's a really good exercise for some people to do is to just set aside what would my boundaries look like? Because most business owners, just especially starting out, they're so eager to be successful and make things happen that they're at the mercy of everyone else, and they have no control over really their own life, which most people get into business to have more control, and they end up having less. And then it'll turn into panic attacks or a weird twitch or like a,
Well, and
I don't know.
just to piggyback off that, if you're someone that's getting texts at 8 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever, you can't control what's in that text. It might say, I'm canceling, I'm trying to like use your language, not mine, but like, I'm canceling a project or something. And then that activates your nervous system because you're like, what am I going to do? I was expecting this to go through or whatever. And then there's nothing you can do about that except try to like calm yourself and get back to a place of, okay, I'm okay. Like this isn't, but my point is texting can really be tricky because you can't control whether or not somebody's texting you, and you're going to look at it. Nobody really like ignores a text message. I would say email, you can say, I'm not checking my email after 6 o'clock or something like that. That's my boundary for myself, because then you could say, all right, there was 10 emails that maybe were important, but I can get back to them when I can get back to them, instead of, I'm all about that moment that activates your nervous system, because it uses energy, it depletes our immune system, our ability to react to things. So I think anything you can do to really regulate your nervous system, whether it's through, like I said before, meditation, mindfulness, breathing, like all of that kind of stuff, using things like ice cubes, to really like ground yourself, like any kind of grounding technique where you're using sensory stimulus. You don't want to have to do that all the time. So I think it's like the first step is that boundary. And then the second step is like, what are our, next things to calm down after I've, had my boundary crossed or whatever it is.
That's a great point, because when people text you, obviously you're going to look at it. And I also want to say, I'm speaking about this like I have great boundaries in place, and I know what to do. And I think I do know what to do, but I check my email constantly. I am reading texts. I'm replying to people all the time. I probably have like the worst boundaries, so I need to work on that, first of all. And second, like, people will text you, and you're going to read it, especially a text message. Email, you can if you really have some discipline, you can not check it. But a text, a lot of times it's going to come through. You're going to see it, and if it's a client that is maybe unhappy or just vague about something, or you don't really know this person yet, so you don't know what their texting kind of like language style is.
Tone,
it's like, oh well,
yeah.
there was no exclamation point on, oh my god, they're upset. Or, hey, can we talk about something first thing in the morning when you get here? And it's like, oh god, what could it be? It could be anything. They're so unhappy. And most of the time that something like that happens, it ends up being like the most
Nothing.
like trivial thing. It's like, oh, I just wanted to know when I should order these fans by. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I was just up all night like
Yeah.
worrying about this. Thought you were going to say you hate me and you hate everything I did. And we live in this state of worry and like trying to predict the future of what's going to happen. And a lot of times you spend so much time worrying about it, and then it actually happens, and it's not what you build up in your head. So that's something I try to be mindful of whenever something happens. It's just, okay, this probably, I'll catch myself in that mode of thinking and say, let me pull myself out of this, and it's probably not that bad. I'll get back to this later. And a lot of times it's just client has a question or something, but you kind of tell that story to yourself that, oh no, something's wrong, and it can ruin your whole night. And that's something to really be aware of as a business owner.
Absolutely. I have a memory of like this past spring, I had someone email me who was kind of like a disgruntled parent of a child that I was working with, and situation out of my control. Like it wasn't something, they weren't disgruntled with me necessarily at that point, but I was at the aquarium with my kids, and I opened an email that was like, even though I felt like I had done nothing wrong in the situation, it was a very aggressively toned email. And if you asked me what happened the rest of that aquarium trip, I would be like, I don't know. Like I blacked out because I was so upset, activated, angry. I wanted to fire back an email just being like, like all the things that I wanted to say, but I had to be like, sit here, take some deep breaths. This is not an emergency. You can craft your response, like try to be with your kids and focus on this moment. But it is, once you get activated like that, it does take time to get back to a place of like what I would call homeostasis or balance, and I think that's why I always come back to that boundaries of like, maybe let's not check the email, because let's not allow something in that maybe is going to ruin your time right now, or like take you away from what you really should be mindful about.
But it could be a really good email that you're missing out on. It could be really exciting. You never know what's going to be in there. That's the exciting part of.
But guess what? It'll be there in 2 hours or whatever. Like if it's really exciting.
Could have some sort of glitch. You might miss it. You might miss that really exciting thing. It's like playing roulette. You just refresh it. Oh my God, something new came through.
Well,
an ad for Land's End. New fleece sweaters.
Gotta get those slippers.
Oh wow. Yeah. I think all of these things are so crucial to business owners, because not only are you in the construction industry, which has this kind of stigma or stereotype around it, where you have to really shield your emotions and be stoic about everything. And meanwhile, you're also dealing with so many stresses of clients, of employees, of timelines, of just everything. There's so much stress in business, and there's so much of an emotional roller coaster that you go through, that those two things meeting together, having all of this stuff happen to you, which can be really stressful, and not having any tools and feeling like you're too manly or too just too manly to deal with it and confront it, is really like a recipe for disaster. So it's it's shocking to hear those numbers about the industry, but at the same time, you can kind of see where that comes from, and hopefully we're breaking down some boundaries here, and we're helping people. Have you ever completely freaked out on a client and said, "Oh yeah, you got a problem? Well, I'm stressed out too. All right."
No, but I have felt myself towing that line of like, I just yesterday I was like having a session with somebody who just had some really spicy kind of like opinions and thoughts about certain things, and they're a younger client. So I was like, okay, let me center myself and, not make this about me and my views or whatever, but let's bring it back to compassion and empathy for other people, and, how we can steer this into a conversation about what about this is interesting to you that you feel so passionate about these kind of spicy, words and rhetoric that you're using. Where can we aim that, into like a really positive, and I don't always love the word positive because I think it kind of like, makes it seem like you always have to be positive about things, but you don't have to be. But I think there's definitely something to be said for making things productive, as opposed to we're just going to complain about a bunch of stuff that maybe is offensive to somebody, when you can say, okay, well, let's think about why this is so important to you, and that's how I kind of temper my personal emotions and feelings during a session. If somebody's really saying some stuff that is like internally lighting me up, but that's not about me. It's not about me, so that's hard won knowledge.
I have another question. Mm-hmm. So in the construction industry, it's quite common to be, you're working all day, you're working with your hands, you're building stuff, you're working on other people's houses. When you come home, the last thing in the world you want to do is do any construction or handyman or carpentry related stuff. So you spend your whole day being empathetic towards others during work. When you come home, and I'll fact check this with Mark. Are you just like, the last thing I want to do is care about your feelings? Do you just lash out constantly?
I don't think I lash out constantly, but you would have to fact check. But I do think, if you asked him honestly, he would probably say, well, I'm probably the last one that gets like the remaining compassion, because I save it for my clients, I save it for my kids, and maybe he's the one that I'm like, you need to handle, whatever it is. But it is hard. It's hard to continue. Like sometimes at the end of the day, you're just like, I have nothing else to give, like I really am all full of like whatever, because it's, it's energy. It's people constantly unloading energy, shifting energy, putting either bad or good or whatever energy out there. And whether you believe in this or not, that affects you. And I've had to learn, and sometimes I'm better at this than others, but when I finish a whole bunch of sessions in a row or something like that, I have to do some like woo-woo energy shifting around exercises. It's something I've learned over the years that it's helpful for me to separate that part of my day and who I am, and then like leading into the rest of my day with, the people in my life, like my personal, people that are most important to me. So it's hard. It's definitely a challenge, but, that's probably the most challenging part of this job, honestly, is like having more compassion, more empathy, more talking, all of that stuff. That can be a challenge for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's obviously something that I experience as well in my household. Some days some days Sarah comes home and she's like, all I want to do is just talk and like have a normal conversation and how was your day, and just feel like normal and not talk about emotions and all this stuff. Other times she's like, I don't want to talk or listen to anybody right now. I just need some quiet time. So I'm going to go upstairs and lay down for a bit and just be silent by myself. And it's I had to kind of learn, just because someone's a therapist doesn't mean they have like the perfect, they might know a lot of the tools, and they might have a lot of things in their toolbox to deal with certain situations, but at the end of the day, like, just because you're a therapist doesn't mean you have mastered the art of like just being calm all the time and like being perfect with your emotions. It's and for some people it's you're so in touch with your emotions that it's, you kind of let them out as they happen, as opposed to somebody like me that just stuffs them down and just waits for them to pop up later. So I think it's super cool. I think our listeners hopefully can take something from this, maybe take action. Just try out therapy. Maybe you might realize I actually don't need it. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. But
and it can be, it's not one size fits all. It can be I need to see somebody every week for a while. I need to see somebody every other week. I need to see somebody once a month. I need to have somebody that I have a relationship with that I can like check back in after a couple months when something happens, or I need a tune up, so to speak. So I think in knowing that it doesn't have to be the same for everybody, and you can really approach it in the way that works for you, can sometimes be liberating. And just knowing, this is a judgment-free zone, and hopefully you'll connect with someone that really helps you feel seen, validated, heard, and accepted, because that's what really most people are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Catherine, you got any closing thoughts? Any more questions? Anything that we didn't touch on? I mean, we didn't touch on a lot. We can't
yeah, this
cross.
Could be a whole series. This is there's a lot here.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. But
I think that was some really good insight, and I'm glad that we're able to have these kinds of conversations, because I do think it's so important, and in an area where people don't usually talk about it, I think it's always a welcome conversation. So thank you so much, Suzi, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really cool. And I was going to suggest something to you guys, but I can say it like after. Yeah. I don't know.
No.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't know if you were already going to do this, but whenever you're having like a conversation about mental health, suicide, whatever, it's always a good idea to like link some resources. So I don't know if you were already going to do that, but just maybe like a link to, like a hotline, or some psychoeducation around suicide or anxiety and depression, or some articles, or just anything where there's like resources. I think is, people get pushback when they don't do that. Like if you're talking about a sensitive topic and then there's no kind of like, oh, let's, provide some kind of like next step. So that would be like a helpful thing probably to like have in your liner notes or something like that. And I can send you guys some if that's helpful.
Sure.
It would be helpful. It definitely would. And I just want you to know, right now, as this is being listened to, there's some manly man in a big lifted truck sobbing. You needed to hear this episode.
I love that.
You've changed that. You've changed this man's life. And
actually, I've had experiences like that with people who work in like trades and stuff, like men who maybe have had like I don't know, there's lots of reasons that people end up in therapy, but I have found them to be really rewarding and really, really exciting sessions, because you get to like kind of work with somebody that's like never had any kind of, direction in this way.
Yeah.
And that's not the case with everybody. So I always find it really rewarding when I can say like, wow, we've changed the way that you look at feelings or accept yourself or interact with the people around you or whatever, so
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on. I think our listeners are going to get some great advice here and some great life stuff out of this. Go to therapy, everybody.
Go to
you
therapy.
need it.
Yes.
You need
Yes.
it.
Love it.
You need it. So
Everybody needs it.
everybody needs it.
all right. Well, thank you, Suzi. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much.
I'll see you soon.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye.
All right, Sean, that was a great segment. Thank you again so much to Suzi for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
But
And
about
now
you-
that all my emotional issues are solved and I feel so good, it'd be cool if maybe there was, I don't know, something else to maybe. Okay.
pledge allegiance
Yeah.
the trivia of the United States
Love
of the
it.
hardworking
I
happy
love
hour.
it. I'm so excited.
Okay.
I'm so excited because I'm in the whole big time here. I'm in the whole big time. What is it? 4-2? It's 4-2
4-2.
lifetime. Okay. Well, I'm preparing a comeback and I'm excited for it. So I lost again. So that means I ask you first. Is that right?
Yeah.
No, you know what? I want, how about I get to pick? I want you to ask me first because
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. What do we start
It
off
didn't
with?
work last time.
True or false or multiple choice?
True or false?
Okay.
Come on.
Okay.
Get with it. Get with it.
All right.
And I'm
Sean.
losing to you?
All right, Sean, relax.
Yes. No, I can't relax. Deep breaths.
Hempcrete. Have you heard of it?
Hempcrete.
It's exactly what it sounds like. It's concrete made out of hemp. It's hemp
It's
fibers
concrete.
and lime.
That goes on the ground but gets you high.
Exactly.
Okay.
I really-
Okay.
Side note, I really feel like they're getting all willy nilly with like hemp.
What they're putting
and
hemp in?
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. But anywho, in 2024 and 2023, it was one of the quickest rising building materials. I'm not wording that
'Cause
right.
Quick as
Because you're
getting
getting high
high.
off of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, it's really rapidly growing in
Popularity and usage.
popularity.
Okay.
It's used for insulation and cladding. So, true or false?
Yes.
The market size of hempcrete in 2024 is 27 billion with a B dollars. True or false?
We talking global, we talking US, we talking
United States of America.
and it's just used as cladding?
And insulation.
False.
It's true.
No, it's not. It's not true. You're making up these facts.
I am
What?
not. Isn't that
What?
crazy? That really surprised me as well. I was like, a hempcrete worth $27 billion, but apparently that's the whole market share of it. $27 billion.
Wow.
I thought you were Googling it.
No, I'm not Googling it. No, I'm going to take your word for it. I'm sure you fact checked it. And wow,
did.
that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Huh.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah. I give.
I feel
I'm
like
gonna
it's
do some
probably going
research
to
on
be.
it.
There, did you hear about in like New England? They were using some sort of concrete additive to it, and now it's like failing, and all of these houses are just like falling in on themselves.
From
because of
hempcrete?
this- No, it was like some other concrete additive, but I feel like hempcrete might be. I can't speak to the integrity of hempcrete. I just learned
Yeah,
about it
you're like-
today, but
Bro, my house is falling on me, dude.
turns out hemp
wicked,
can't fix
dude.
everything, bro.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, your turn.
Okay. Well, that was a good one. And just to be clear, hemp will not get you high. It's actually a very renewable resource, and I'm excited. It probably has a good
Legs out there.
It's got some legs. It's got some legs for lots of usage, so that's cool. Okay. Air conditioners, heater units, fireplaces, all that kind of stuff. You've heard the measuring unit that they use is a BTU.
Correct.
How many BTUs that bad boy got? You know, how many times have you heard that just today?
Oh, so many.
So many. So, you know, it got me thinking, what does that even stand for? I've heard it a million times. I have no freaking clue. So, true or false? BTU stands for British Thermal Unit.
I would have guessed the U stood for unit, so I do agree with that part. A British thermal unit.
That was pretty good. That was really good.
British thermal unit. I'm gonna go false.
It's true.
It is?
It's true. Yeah, British Thermal Unit. I was really shocked by that. I thought like when I looked it up, I'm like, I must have heard this before. Like, I'm gonna look this up and be like, oh yeah, that's what it stands for. But British Thermal Unit, no, I had no idea. But you hear BTUs all the time. And did you ever wonder what a BTU is?
Yeah.
1 BTU is the quantity of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 pound of liquid water by 1 degree Fahrenheit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like those when it's some sort of acronym, it's usually like helpful in knowing what it means. British thermal unit. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make much sense, isn't it?
Good question though. I like that one. That was good.
It's pretty clever.
Pretty clever.
You're good at you're great at a British accent. That's amazing.
I feel like it sounds so silly, but thank you.
No.
Okay.
All right, next one.
This
All right,
one.
so I'm winning. No, wait, am I?
No, you got yours wrong too.
Oh, dang it.
We're tied at 0.
Oh no. Okay. All right.
Okay. This is just straightforward, no nonsense. Who is the largest steel manufacturer in the United States? A. Nucor Corporation. B. U.S. Steel. C. Commercial Metals Company. Or D. Steel Dynamics.
Nucor.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yay.
That's the only one I heard of. And
You've never heard of
feel
U.S.
like
Steel?
well, yeah, but that's like from the 1800s or whatever. I don't even know if they're still a company. So I figured you just threw that one in there because I've heard of it before. So a little mind games
I was trying to throw you a bone this week because I thought I was making my questions too hard.
Thank you so much. Okay. Next question. Are you familiar with the concept of suspension bridges?
Yes.
Okay, so the longest suspension bridge in the world is the 1915 Çanakkale Bridge in Turkey. Now,
1915?
it's not. No, it's just called that, but it was open to traffic initially in 2022.
Okay.
But it is the longest suspension bridge, and they measure that by the amount of space between any of those the footings or whatever you call them on a bridge.
The
you know what I
amount
mean?
of suspensions. Yeah.
So it's just the open portion. What is that open span? Not the total length of the bridge, but the unsupported length. That's what we're measuring here.
Okay.
So what is that open span? And think like, us spanning like a pergola 20 feet's a lot. You need a big beam there.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Okay.
What is the span? 1,357 feet. Are you writing these down?
Yeah.
Okay. 6,637 feet. 11,742 feet. Or 3,754 feet. Now, this is completely unsupported. Well, it's supported by suspension.
Yeah.
But nothing underneath it. Of really an engineering marvel. It's quite impressive.
I mean, I feel like that 1915 has to be some sort of measurement if it's not the year that it was created, right? But
I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea.
I don't know what unit of measurement. I don't know what the unit of measurement is that they would use in Turkey. The metric system, maybe?
Probably.
All right, can you give me those choices again? You spoke too fast and I couldn't read them down.
1,357 feet.
Okay.
6,637 feet.
Okay.
11,742 feet. 3,754 feet. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think?
gonna go B.
Why? You sure?
I don't know. It feels right.
You sure you want to change it?
No.
I would change it. What's the chances that it's B? There's 3 other options that it probably is. It's probably not B. Dang it, it's B. How did you get that? I think you were onto something. Let me see.
Yeah, I felt like that the math on that might work out.
No. Well, how much is a meter is actually like, how much? It's like 3.3 feet. 1915 times 3.3. Yeah, that's what it is. Dang it.
All right, we're tied.
I can't believe there was that clue in there and I didn't even know. All right, hit me with the last question. Isn't
Okay.
that crazy though that it can span that far just on suspension cables?
Absolutely
6,000
insane.
feet unsupported.
And my next question is going to tie right into it.
Okay.
I went
Perfect
basic
bridge
for this.
to the next question.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
I went really basic with this. I feel like you're going to know it.
Okay.
But we hear a lot in the industry, whether it's concrete or bridges, we hear about tensile strength.
Mhm.
Define what tensile strength is, and it's specific. So you can't just say vaguely like, oh, it's when something's stronger. Like, what is tensile strength?
It's a little bit more than 9-sile strength. And a little
Great
bit less
answer.
than 11-sile strength. It is the resistance to pulling apart.
Correct.
Look at me.
Correct.
Okay. Feel myself.
Yep. I kind of threw
Okay.
you both. I figured you'd do that, but also it's like, a lot of people hear tensile strength and they're like, well,
Yeah.
it's just like, it's when you put rebar in concrete and it makes it stronger, but it's actually the force of pulling it apart.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so important for bridges, like suspension bridges.
Rightio. All right. Look at me. I'm feeling myself now.
All right.
All right. What is... I really want to change this because I feel like it's too easy now, but whatever. What is the difference between a ridge rafter and a ridge beam? Explain it to me in a way that I find acceptable. No matter what you say, it's going to be wrong. So, ridge rafter, ridge beam, what's the difference?
Ridge beam is structural.
And
it's holding up all the other... It's holding up something else.
Just explain it for a little bit more, and then I'll
not.
decide.
A ridge rafter is part of the rafter system, and the ridge beam is holding up the rafters.
I'll accept it. Yeah. It's a structural member that is supporting some of the load of the rafter. Yeah. And not transferring it all to the eaves. All right. Well, that's a push. It's a push this week. No change in. Should we do a tiebreaker?
I don't have any tiebreaker questions.
Me either. So that's ridiculous. It'll be a push. It was a tie. We both performed great.
Great job by both of us.
Both 2 out of 3. Not bad. That's 66.66666% of the answers correct. So great job from both of us there. And wow, what a great episode. Yeah. What a great episode. Having Suzi on talking about her feelings. It's important. Don't feel like you're too manly to talk about your feelings.
No, we ended in a tie, so neither of us feel bad about our performance.
How perfect. Wow.
Fitting.
It's all coming together. Really, when you're scared to talk about your feelings, it doesn't make you seem manly. It makes you seem like you're insecure and you're not confident in your masculinity. So open up, be confident. Say, you know what? It's okay to not be okay, and we can talk about it. You don't have to talk about it to everybody if you don't want. You can talk to a therapist who you pay to talk about it. And I think it's something that a lot more people need than are using it right now. And it helped me out a lot. And I think it's good mental exercise. It's good mental and hygiene for your soul. It's preventative maintenance in a lot of ways, and it can be helpful. And you might need it even if you don't think you need it, because it just hasn't manifested in a way that you've connected all the dots yet. So be good, everybody. We love you. You knew that was coming. You knew that was coming.
I did know that was coming.
Yeah. You saw it. You saw that coming. But we do. And, we'll see you on the other side. No. We'll see you in the next episode. That made it seem like
we're ending something.
Like the passing of like the end of life. Like, see you on the other side. No. We might see you there too, but we'll see you around here as well. Everyone just be good to each other, all right? And we'll see you next week.
Okay. And now, ready to go into the intro.
Oh, we'll just ride it?
Just roll right into it.
All right. Go ahead.
Hey, Sean.
Hi, Catherine.
How are you?
I'm Sean. Nice to meet you.
I'm Natalie. It's nice to meet you.
Oh, you always go with a standard fake name.
Yeah, it's always Natalie.
Sometimes
Sometimes I say Natalia, but usually it's Natalie. It's my standard fake name.
I feel like you need to pair that with an accent, and in a previous episode you did a British accent, so why don't you try that? Hi, I'm Natalie.
Oh, Natalie with a British accent? Natalia is very like
Russian
or like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, what's your fake name? What would you go with for a fake name?
Probably Roscoe.
Okay.
I don't know. I just pulled that out of nowhere. No, I don't have a standard fake. I'm too notable of a person. Everybody would know who I am.
Oh God.
Like, that's that guy that I think he builds decks on YouTube. I cannot get by with an alias.
Classic.
Far too notable. But
famous people these days.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked already, and that is not why we're here. We are here to provide value, and we have a guest on this week that is going to bring a lot of value, and I think it's super interesting because could not be more, I don't want to say opposite of me, but his strengths are a mirror of my weaknesses, which so I was excited to have this conversation and learn a lot, and that is James Reed from affordablepatio.com. And we've met him at some trade shows. He is friends with some people that we are friends with and has become one of our friends, and really has it dialed in on his systems, on all of his processes, and has created what he says is the McDonald's of hardscaping. It's rinse and repeat. It is a system that they constantly monitor and tweak and improve on things, and it works. And I think no matter what type of business you have, even if you are not trying to be the McDonald's of your trade industry, we can all pull a lot of valuable stuff out of this to improve our systems, to improve our processes, to just standardize things. So I'm really excited. A lot of value here, and excited to get into it.
Yeah.
What do you
got any more kibitzing to get into, or do you want to just send it right to the guest?
Why? What do you got? You got any good kibitzing?
At the time of this episode, I will be in Italy, so.
My God. Sounds like you've already checked out mentally.
Sure have.
You're like, I got nothing to talk about. I'm already in Italy. Well, you're not in Italy because this episode has not come out yet. Very exciting. Very exciting. Very happy for you that you are exploring the world.
Thank
Italy.
you.
I hear that they got great food there.
Oh, can't wait.
Check it out. Check it out.
20 pounds heavier by the time I return.
I feel like I'm not sure if I would be like because I like Italian food. I'm not sure if I would be like highly disappointed because I'd be like, what? This doesn't taste like American Italian food. It tastes
this isn't like Olive Garden. What is this?
What is this? Everything tastes so fresh. I don't like this. Because I've heard that a lot of Italian food there is like very seafood heavy. They don't have like fettuccine Alfredo is not like a popular thing over there. It's like light, like a white wine dousing of something on some scallops and
Ooh, that sounds good.
linguine.
Probably, yeah.
I don't know. Well, let us know. Let us
I'll
know.
let you know. I'll keep you posted.
Let us know when you're back. But
But anyway, really excited for this episode. A lot of good value. And also, we pre-recorded this right before this intro, so we already know what he was talking about, and it's great. And
so we can confidently say it's going to be great.
This is a dense episode. You're going to get a lot of value out of this for sure. So
You definitely will. And I got a lot out of it. So I can't wait to implement some of this stuff. And it got me just fired up. It got me excited about systems and just seeing them in a new light. They're not the bane of our existence. They're something to be cherished and to be loved. So anyway.
yeah.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's
get into it.